What's up, everybody? This is Chad Calek here. Welcome to episode number 1 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, which is really just designed for me to share thoughts with you. It could be a memory of something, some social event that kind of spurred an opinion of mine. It could be something that's going to happen in the future. It could be political. Of course, we're going to talk about the crazy world we live in, of the paranormal and the unexplained. And sometimes we'll talk about the past. And that's exactly what this episode number 1 is going to be about. Because a really crazy chapter in my life came flooding back. The memory of this came flooding back the other night after I watched the movie White Boy Rick, which is a movie that's based on the true story of a gentleman named Rick Wershe Jr., who is from Detroit, who got a life sentence at 18 for cocaine possession and racketeering. But what's interesting about this young man's story is he was called White Boy Rick. He was nicknamed that by the local gangs in Detroit because he had been pushing drugs and working for the different drug runners in Detroit since, well, some say as early as 12, but by the age of 14, he started working for the feds. For the FBI, in which he was slowly feeding them information of his enemies, and the FBI would take his enemies out until suddenly he didn't have any more enemies by the age of 18, which he was now the enemy. And from working with the feds, he had all kinds of inside dirt on people, so they planted coke on him and gave him a life sentence. Now, kind of at the crux of the whole is the question of, is it true that the FBI would have worked with him as an undercover agent or an undercover asset at the age of 14. And I remember thinking, this is crazy to me that this is a question right now. Because at the age of 15, I was working for the FBI undercover. Let me take you back to the fall of 1992, in which I was just like any other high school kid. I was a bit of an athlete, but I also hung out with, the stoner crowd. I also hung out with the crowds that was into music and concerts, and I guess I was kind of all over the map when it came to my clique. But one of my good friends, his father worked for the FBI, and his father was a bit of a soccer dad. Like in the middle of a baseball game, for example, if he would strike out or something, his dad would make him come out of the the dugout and walk down the fence as he just, berated him about what he was doing wrong. So it was that kind of, really kind of domineering personality. For the sake of this story, because I don't think legally I could still even say the names of the people that I'm talking about here. But for the sake of this story, I'm just going to call him Lee, my buddy's dad. So after a basketball game one night at my high school, which my parents had went to see as well, because my brother had been playing the junior varsity. My parents were approached by Lee. At first I thought maybe I was in some kind of trouble, because I am like, why is Lee, the FBI agent, talking to my parents in the corner? What in the heck is going on? And so I got home and my dad said, sit down, I got to talk to you. And I sat down, and what he explained to me, I could not believe. I could not believe what I was hearing. He tells me that Lee noticed, this kind of made me feel kind of weird for a second. Lee noticed that I appeared to be much older than I am. I visually looked older than I am. And I did. I was a very kind of young bloomer. I was physically, I was that kid that physically developed way before everybody else. I mean, I remember in 5th grade, I was shaving. In 6th grade, I could grow a goatee. So by the time I was 15, I could grow, a full, if I wanted to, I could grow a full, Billy Jack beard, So my dad pointed out that Lee had said to him, how do you feel about Chad working for us undercover? And he explained that in Iowa, there was an underground pornography ring of illegal pornography, which he explained to my father was some of the worst stuff ever. And this ring of peddlers. They would open up there was these flash openings where they would open up a store in a underground building, for like only a period of time, like 4 to 6 hours, and then it would shut down. And the next night, it would open up somewhere else. And for all the people that were into a lot of this weird stuff that they were peddling, they would somehow know where the store was going to open up and where they can go buy things and where they can go, get, I guess, their fill of crazy pornography. And Lee had explained that they had some solid intel coming up of a location and a time period in which this illegal pornography shop was going to open up. And they wanted me to go in there and basically buy a bunch of really, really gnarly, really, really disturbing pornography. Because that alone would be illegal, but the fact that they sold it to someone who was 15 would make it like a closed case. I gotta be honest, there was a part of me that was like, this has to be some kind of joke. Like, I mean, that's a hell of a thing to approach parents about. But I could tell from my dad wasn't much of a joker, and I could tell from on his face that he was serious. And I said, well, I mean, are you asking me if I want to do it? And my dad was like, well, yeah, I'm asking you how you feel about it, which blew me away that they were going to consider it. And I got to be honest, I was all in. I was just like, this sounds like the absolute coolest thing I could ever imagine. Let's take some bad guys down. And the reason I say that, I've said this before in interviews, I've been asked if you weren't involved with filmmaking or the paranormal, what would you be? And I said I would either be a homicide investigator or a bounty hunter, only because I'm super interested in the psychology of human beings. And both of those jobs, I think you have to spar with your wit, basically. You have to you're challenged with your mind, and you're challenged to understand the mind of somebody else. Which to me is just a really super cool, it'd be a super cool career. So I looked at this as, oh my God, I mean, I could get the chance at age 15 to start working for the FBI, going undercover, taking down bad guys, and the thought of, I didn't know what kind of pornography this was, but my original thought was, yeah, it's going to be the worst stuff ever. And I want to take those people down. If I can do that, yes, I want to do that. And my mother was surprisingly okay with it if I was, and it was kind of a weird moment. I remember after dinner going, so now that I'm cool and you guys are cool, so what do? I just go knock on the door and sign up for the FBI? Like, is that what I do? I don't know what's going on. So, oddly enough, it was kind of like that. So basically, my father spoke with Lee, and basically I was told a place and a time to come to meet for the first time, and I would receive more instructions later. So I ended up going down to Council Bluffs, Iowa, and again, I guess I can't say where the location's at, but it was a location that was kind of tucked away from the main heart of downtown. And the first round of meetings were really to understand. First, I had to sign a document that I had to take home, by the way, for my parents to sign too before coming back the next time. But it was a waiver. It was a waiver basically saying, I'm not kidding you, saying if I die, if I get sick, from anything that I'm handling, if I get shot, there was a million bad scenarios on there. And basically, if any of that stuff happened, it was a waiver saying, I knew the risk, I chose to do it, I'm entering into this knowing that. And then my parents also had signature parts where they had to agree to that. And it also agreed that I couldn't tell anybody about it, I couldn't say anything about it, I couldn't mention anybody's names, silence. And I had to be, quiet about it, which I think, I'm sure by now, there's had to be some kind of statute of limitations on it. But just to be sure, like I said, I want to be careful with some details. I'm not trying to get anybody into trouble for something that happened that long ago. But yeah, that scared me. That was one of the scariest parts, is when, we're kind of going over this document about how I can't say anything. And if, if something bad happens to me, oh, I asked for it. So that's that. It freaked my parents out too. I believe they had a couple more conversations with Lee before they actually put pen to paper, but that was my first meeting. And then it was about compensation, and they basically told me, you're underage, so we're going to compensate you, um, but it's going to be, with cash or merchandise, which I was like, that's weird. In Iowa at that time, at the age of 14, you can go to work for a company. So I thought, why can't they, pay me just like any other company or whatever? But no, they said, no, we can't do, we can't have you on an actual payroll. And they did tell me it was because of your age. And if I had a problem with it, then I couldn't be a part of this. And I didn't care if it was $10 or $100. I wanted, I wanted this to be real, and it was very real. And I learned that the third time I went back. So the first time was to sign the documents to go over it. The second time we had went over the payment stuff, and we had went over protocol of like, who I would be riding to this location with. And they identified a gentleman that I hadn't met yet. It was another FBI agent, and that there would be supposedly a second surveillance van that was behind, and then a third vehicle from an agent that was already at the location. And they had a map of the whole area, and they pointed out where everybody would be so I would know the whole location. Where things got really real for me is when we had to go over. I wasn't allowed to carry a weapon, but I was made aware that there would be people, the people that were inside, the agent inside, the agents outside, that they would all be fully loaded down. They had some weapons there, and they showed me what they would be carrying. But then they also showed me the mic and the wire, and they had to put it on. Like, they pretty much duct taped wires to your stomach and to your back. And the only way to get that stuff off was just to rip it off when you were done. So we did a full test of the equipment and the wire, and I had this little tiny microphone that I could hear, but it kept breaking out. And it was because it was one of the first times they used like wireless technology. It wasn't like it is today. I had the wire on me so I could talk to them and they could hear it. But then I had this tiny, it looked like a hearing aid almost, that I would put in my ear, and you couldn't really see it as long as the hair was down there. But I remember it just crackling and just breaking up really bad. And they said, it's not that great, but you'll be able to make out what we're saying. And I'm like, I go, so wow, I guess I never really thought about this, but I'm going to have to walk into this place wired up. Of course. Why didn't I think about this? Obviously, they got to know what I'm saying and where I'm going. So we're going over kind of like the protocol, like when you're going to get dropped off on this street corner. When you get dropped off, look up across the street. You're going to see this van. When this gentleman looks over at you, you're free to go in. When you come in to your left, you're going to see this agent. To your far right against the wall, there's going to be this agent. They're armed with these weapons. At that time, on your way over, we're going to do a test to make sure the equipment that you're wearing is working. We'll let you know in your earpiece, like all this stuff. And I'm going, wow, this is like really going down. So part of that meeting too, they have kind of a diagram of what the floor plan looks like of this place. And they're telling me what kind of porn that they want me to purchase. And they have examples of this. And one point I should have brought out in all this is Lee is letting his son come to these meetings with me. So he's there. His kid's there with me doing all this that I'm friends with. And I found out later on he did it because he wanted me to be comfortable, to have a friend, in case I wanted to back out. His son would talk to me about it and go, no, you can do this, which I never wanted to back out. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because it was a super weird moment, because here's my buddy who is a really good friend of mine, and his dad, who now has me involved in this, undercover thing. And I've just signed all the documents. I've just went through all the tests, got all this stuff on, got the layout, the kind, the attack plan, all this stuff. And now they want me to look at the porn that I'm supposed to, basically buy when I get in there. And So they whip out this porn right in front of me, my buddy. The agent that's in the room, his dad. It's all there. They're showing this to me, and man, I mean, this is just stuff you just wish you can unsee. I mean, it really made me sick to my stomach. And this isn't like, there's hardcore porn in the world. This was illegal stuff. It was child pornography. It was animal pornography. Uh, what appeared to be like dead people pornography. I mean, it was disturbing shit. Um, so right away, I was like, I get it, I'm good. We can put this away. We can totally put this away. And so at the end of that meeting, it was like the third meeting. Uh, I'm told, okay, it's on. And it was only a couple days later. It was like, okay, a couple days from now, we're going to meet at this location now, which is a different location. We're going to get you wired up. We're going to go through it all. And I'm told, when you go in there, this is the protocol that you have to follow. You walk down, you go to this, to the stand on your left. You look a little bit. You don't pick anything up. You go to the stand on your far right. That's when you grab something you want. You go to the other stand straight ahead. That'll be the other kind of porn that we want you to get. And there's one more place which was back. It was on the other side of. It was kind of back behind where the counter was, and that was like where the animal porn was. Like, we want you to get some of that too. And then you check out. You don't say a word. Once you're done buying it, you leave. By the time you get to the top of the stairs, because there was a stairway that went down in this building, this was all in the basement of this really old building. And they said, we promise you that by the time you get to the top of the stairs on your way out, you will see the agents that were on the outside would be rushing in, armed. And they said, should anything happen to you on the inside while you're in there, again, there are 2 armed agents. Their number one priority is to keep you safe. So if you get busted for being underage, if the teller or the person working there, calls you out for it, you don't say a word, you turn and you walk towards the stairs. Do not argue with them. Do not let them be close to you. Do not do anything like that. If this guy, if the person, the teller selling you the stuff, if he approaches you or if he comes at you, they're just going to arrest him right there. And that's what I'm told to do. So what the last thing that I would add too is they gave me some of the profiles of who they knew were working in there. At the time, they said that there was 5 people total that were working in there. And they gave me some of their history. Now, what was scary is the person that was behind, that was the teller, that was behind the cashier that was selling stuff. And everything's in cash, by the way. I guess that guy had done 20, he was older, all tattooed, and all just tattoos everywhere. I mean, all prison tats, too. When I saw him, I was like, man, this guy was scary. But this guy had done over 20 years for murder. Now, I don't know the details of the case or how he got out after 20, but he had done 20 years for murder. A couple people in there were younger, didn't really have much of a record. And then, if memory serves me correctly, the 2 other people had done some time here and there for assault and for some gun charges. And but the point being is that these were not savory characters, and I'm not knocking anybody who goes to jail or anything, or anybody who has problems or anything like that, because I have friends of mine that have gone to jail and they're amazing people and they learned a lot when they were in there. So please understand my words here, but it mattered in relation to me as a 15-year-old kid walking into a situation where there's an illegal enterprise running, and I'm the focus of what is going to take this enterprise down. So it comes time to do it, and I go there. I get all taped up. I'm going across the street. My heart is pounding without question. The adrenaline is going like crazy. I hit the stairs, and man, it's straight out of a horror film. It's just this long, dark red stairway. It's all painted red. There's this light at the bottom that's just kind of shining up the landing at the bottom of the stairs, and it just looks like you're taking a trip to hell. It was so spooky. So I get to the bottom, open the door, walk in, and yeah, it is literally nothing more than it's just some dingy basement where these guys set up a register on top of a table, like a standing bar table, and this exactly as they describe this guy, big, old, huge dude, just tattoos head to toe, is just sitting behind the register, and he's got a bag in his hand, a leather bag with a zipper and a lock on it, which is where they're holding the cash and the change. So clearly they've chosen him to do this job because he's the badass. And if someone wants to take that money, they got to get it from him. And there's about 3 or 4 people in there that are roaming back and forth that are not, the agents. And I know who the agents are. I've met them at this point. I've seen photos of the one that was the second one that was in there. I didn't meet him in person. It just worked out where I couldn't, but I had a photo of him to know exactly what he looked like, and I recognized him right away, and they're both stationed in the right place. So I get down there, and I make my way to each place, and again, man, my palms are sweaty, my heart is just racing. I mean, I'm freaked out, but to be honest, I am amped too. I mean, this is awesome. I was like, this is so intense. It was just so intense, and I loved it. So I go to each spot that they tell me to go, and I'm getting each category of illegal porn. And again, this is stuff that you would just give anything in your lifetime to unsee. I mean, terrible stuff. And as I cross, the last kind of area that I'm supposed to go to, I see this long, dark hallway, and there's a red exit light at the end, and I could hear something down there. And I was just overwhelmed with curiosity, and I'm like, what is this? So I just start roaming down there, and right away I hear in my earpiece, it's cracking, but I can hear her saying, hey, Chad, listen, we don't got anybody down there. Don't go down there. Come back. Just check out and be done with it. And I'm like, oh, but I want to go though. Like, I want to see what this is. And as I get closer, I could see what it is. And what it is that there's 2 bedrooms or rooms. I'm guessing they're bedrooms of some kind. But there's 2 rooms with doors that are adjacent from each other. And I can hear that like something's going on. And it sounded to me like sex. My thought was, if this is all dirty, illegal porn, are they having like illegal type sex back here? And my thought was, what if somebody needs help? So I just want to get close enough to hear it initially to see what kind of the sounds would tell me, So it got closer and closer and closer, and it got to the point where the only way for me to figure out what's going on is to open the door and see what's happening. At the last second, I'm reaching for the door, and I'm going to open the door, to be honest. I'm like, I just want to see what's in there, because if it's something dirty, then I want to make sure that could get shut down too. And it's stupid. I don't know what I'm thinking now, looking back on it. But in the time, you're in the moment, you just feel like this freaking, at least me, I just felt like such a warrior for justice in that moment. But right before I do, as I approach the door, I step in something. And I'm like, what is this? And I step back and I look down. I can't really see what it is. And right at that time, the door to the left of me opens, and 2 guys walk out. One was way older. And then there was probably, I would say, a guy in his mid-40s. Probably like, if I could guess, the difference 70 and 40 years old. They walk out, but when he opens the door, the light shoots across my feet and reveals what it is that I'm stepping in. And it's a straight freaking river of cum. I am just like, oh my God. I have the worst stomach for stuff like that. And I wanted to puke so bad on the spot. I was just like, oh my God, what am I'm walking through people's. So, anyways, I'm like, yeah, I'm out. That's it. I'm out of here. Um, so I turn around right away. The guys look at me really weird from across from the adjacent room that they came out. So I'm already feeling like I need to get, I need to get out of here right now because these guys are wondering why I'm back here alone already. I'm going to blow this whole thing. So I make my way back to the cashier. I don't say a word. I literally hand the stuff I want to the guy. He doesn't look twice at me, throws it in the bag, says the amount. I don't even remember what the amount was for. It was like, it's like $50, $100, something like that. And I didn't even say thank you. I just grabbed the bag, turned around, and made my way out to the top of the stairs. And so I come up out of the stairs, and coming at me, you know, so I come up out of the stairs, and true to exactly what he said, they're coming at me with guns drawn. And I was told when I got to the stairs to not go back to the car that dropped me off because that car's gone. I was supposed to go to the surveillance van, which I knew where it was. So I did. And as I'm going there, I can hear what's going on inside the place I was just at because it's kind of crackling in my ear. But I make it to the surveillance van. The door opens up, and it's my Lee's son. My buddy is in there listening to the whole thing, and he's just going, "Dude, this is so sick." And we were so amped to listen to this, and we sat inside the surveillance van, and we heard everything that was happening, and they basically went through and arrested everybody. And the next day, it was in the newspaper. The bust was actually took down the largest underground ring of illegal porn. I guess peddlers or merchants, whatever you want to call them, that had ever happened in Iowa. And everybody there was facing like crazy sentences. And yeah, there was child porn, animal porn, there was like snuff porn, there was all kinds of stuff that was just really, really disturbing stuff. And they had been trying to capture these people red-handed for quite a while. I guess it was like a 3-year investigation. Now, I was incredibly stoked. I was just like, this is like what I want to do. I remember thinking in the van, this is what I want to do. But afterwards, they took us to McDonald's, and I was given a $100 bill, and I was told that they would buy me my dinner as well. And Lee was very cool about the whole situation. But I had a conversation with his partner. It was right when I was going home. He said, "Hey, can I give you a piece of advice?" And I turned around and I said, "Yeah, sure, anything, And he goes, "Don't do this anymore." And I go, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Dude, we killed it. Look, I was scared, but I did it. I showed courage. I told you, I was down. I did it. Like, what are you talking about? I'm only 15. Look what I just did." And he said to me, he said, "You're not built for this." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "When you were down that hallway, you should have felt real fear." And I said, "No, it was scary." He goes, "No, like the fear should have stopped you from ever going down there, knowing that we can't protect you in that scenario." And I go, "Well, I know, but I was thinking the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to, I don't know what, try to assault me maybe, or I was just thinking, what's the worst that can happen to me? And he goes, "Well, but that's just it. It's not just you. It's what you don't know. What's the worst that can happen to us? What's the worst that can happen to everybody around? You're introducing, all kinds of variables that we can't control, and you should have been terrified and you weren't. You couldn't properly recognize the danger you were in." And he said, "And people that I've met that do this kind of work, that have those type of characteristics like you," he goes, "trust me, they wind up dead. And they wind up dead real early." And it was a terrifying thought that I was somehow unable to judge my own surroundings in a way that could keep me safe. And it was something I thought about for a long, long, long time. I ended up speaking to Lee a week later, in which I told him that the experience was crazy, and I thanked him for it, but that I was done. It was just a reminder that there are just times in life where you have to recognize that maybe you weren't built to do what you think you were built to do. This gentleman had no reason to say this to me other than for his concern for me. It almost felt like he had lost somebody, which I did not get the chance to dig deep into his past, but I can tell he meant it. You know, he was saying, look, I can see you really want to do this, but this isn't for you. I think he's probably right. As I've gotten older, I really recognize what he was trying to say. So I like to believe there's a moral to every story in life, but if there's a moral to this one for you guys listening, it's that take advice. Most people don't. For some reason in that moment, it really hit me that this gentleman knew what he was talking about. And if I wanted to have a long life, I would take his advice. And I'm glad I did, because I've led a pretty exciting life since then. And hopefully will continue to. Thank you for joining me for episode 1 of the In a Crowded Room podcast. We'll be back with more tomorrow.